Dinah and Alan Katler were both born in Chicago to families who had immigrated from Europe, fleeing war and antisemitism. Dinah grew up surrounded by a close-knit extended family, aunts, uncles, and cousins who gathered regularly. She was social from the start, loved school, took part in countless activities, and from a young age was known for one thing in particular: she loved to talk.
Every report card, which I've saved, says, talks too much, talks too much, talks too much.
Since childhood, and still today, Dinah has been someone who loves to learn, always drawing life lessons from every experience.
I tell my grandchildren, when your children do something naughty, you don't know what's going through your head. My aunt yells at me. She thought I was being so bad. I just wanted her to stay.
Alan also grew up in a loving family, but his childhood came with significant challenges. His father became ill while Alan was in high school, leading him to leave school for 2 years to help support the family. His parents later divorced, and Alan sadly lost his father in his early 20s.
They wheeled him into the emergency room, and he looked at me and he said, "I'm not going to make it." And he didn't. And that was the last time I saw him. It was difficult. It was very difficult.
Throughout it all, Alan found joy and confidence in sports and friendships, and eventually in returning to finish school. After graduating high school and spending a short time in university, he joined the Army, an experience he looks back on with many amusing stories and gratitude for the fact he drafted just in time.
Vietnam was just brewing. It was just starting. And when I got discharged, I was as happy as lark because I would have been a medic in Vietnam. So I was very fortunate in that respect.
In their early 20s, Alan and Dinah met. The story of how they met and how their first date actually went depends on whom you ask.
That's how I met her. Then she met me. You can tell her how you met me.
Nonetheless, before long, they were engaged, married, and building a home and life together. Their shared life includes many pieces. Alan's long and successful career in sales, interestingly starting with an insult.
He said, "You couldn't sell your way out of a paper bag." Got into our little blue Dodge Dart and drove to New York.
Dinah's years of dedicated volunteer work for Jewish causes.
Did a lot of really good work. It was wonderful. And that was 25 years.
Their gradual growth and change within the religious world.
Then we knew we were going to keep kosher.
What could almost be called Alan's athletic semi-career in racquetball.
We were rated in the state of Illinois in our 30s and 40s in the top 10 in Illinois, in the state of Illinois. We were very good.
And raising 3 beloved children, creating the foundation for the extremely close family they treasure today.
The most impactful person was my wife. She led the pack and I followed.
A family, a community life, activism, traveling the world, and a partnership that stayed steady through every chapter. This is the story of Dinah and Alan Katler, told over 4 episodes. You are listening to Episode 1. Dinah Katler was born as Dinah Bender on January 25th, 1942 in Chicago.
My English name was Dinah. My Yiddish name was Dini Fagi. And I took on Dinah as my Hebrew name. It was an issue now, a recent issue that I had a discussion, that Dini Fagi is not the same as Dinah, as Dinah. And I said that Dini Fagi was really a nickname. Dini instead of Dinah or Dina, and Fagi was little bird. So my mother liked a little bird, and Dini was like, my friend calls me Dinala. So it was that kind of a nickname.
Dinah was an only child. Her mother, Dorothy, who was 35 at the time of her birth, later shared with her that her birth had been a difficult one.
My mother labored for 3 days. Her organs began to shut down. She had a very easy pregnancy, but a very hard delivery. And the doctor couldn't turn my head in the right position for birth. So after 3 days, when she almost died, they finally did a C-section. And she never told me that she had a C-section until after I had my first child, because she was afraid that I would be afraid to get pregnant, that I would have the same problems or that I would be scared. She was a very closed, she was private. She was a private person, and she was afraid for me.
Dinah's first bed, in the one-room apartment she was taken home from the hospital to, was a dresser drawer.
It was 1942, so it was wartime, and money was very tight, and it was hard to get an apartment. We had a studio apartment, and I didn't have a crib to begin with. So when I came home, my parents put me into a drawer. They made a little bed for me with a blanket. I don't know what else was in there, and that was for a short time until they could afford to buy a crib.
Dorothy came to America from Lithuania when she was around the age 19 or 20.
She was born in Marijampol, Lithuania, and lived there until she was an older teen. She was one of 6 children, and her mother always was sickly. She had asthma, so it was sort of a rough beginning. Her father left for America because he wanted to bring the family. He had relatives. He had 2 brothers that were already in the States, and they lived in Indiana. So they went to Chicago. He went to Chicago, and he worked. He brought my oldest aunt with him, and they worked for a number of years to raise money to bring the family. And when they finally did, my grandmother took the 5 younger children, and it was a very hard trip. They went through Rotterdam, and they stayed there for maybe 3 months, and then they came through Ellis Island and came to Chicago.
Back in Europe, Dinah's grandfather had fought in World War I.
He was in the cavalry. My mother was very proud of the fact that he had his own horse in the cavalry, and luckily he survived that experience and then came to the United States.
He died shortly after successfully bringing his family to the United States, so Dinah never got to know him. Her grandmother, whom she had the privilege of knowing even for a short time, passed away when Dinah was 5. She shares with me some memories of her.
I remember her in the kitchen at my aunt's house. She was very wrinkled. She was only in her 70s, so when we think of 70-year-olds, usually they're not so. She had very deep wrinkles. She was very small, and she was cooking, so she was perspiring, and I kissed her cheek, and it was salty, and that was the good memory. And then as she was packing to leave, that was around the same time, I was probably 5 years old, my aunt had a key in that you had to open the door with a key, a big key. I don't know, it was a key lock, and I didn't want her to leave, so I found the key, and I locked her in the bedroom and put the key, I stood up on a chair and put the key at the top of a bookcase, and I thought nobody's ever going to find that key. And when my grandmother started knocking on the door, because she couldn't open the door, she couldn't get out, and my aunt came running because she got so scared, she probably could have had a heart attack, and my aunt looked at me, and I said, "Ha, you'll never find it." And she reached up her hand and took the key and opened the door, and I don't remember what happened to me after that, but it scared my grandmother almost to death. I didn't know that was going to happen, but I didn't want her to leave, and that's the last time I saw her because that was when she passed away, that winter.
Dinah learned a lesson about parenting from that memory.
I tell my grandchildren, when your children do something naughty, you don't know what's going through your head. My aunt yelled at me. She thought I was being so bad. I just wanted her to stay. So sometimes you have to think, why is your kid doing something that they're doing? Look at the reasoning, because you don't know what's going on in their head. Sometimes it's a very innocent thing that they're doing.
Dorothy's family growing up kept a religious home. Dinah heard from her mother stories from Europe, like how they ate cholent for Shabbat and had a sukkah attached to their home.
On Friday, my grandmother would bring her cholent pot, and all the people in the community would come to the bakery because the bakery had their ovens going all the time, and they put their cholent pots in there, and on Shabbos they would have cholent. I don't know what else they ate because she didn't share that with me, but nobody in her family ever made cholent. They came to America and they made tsimis. That was because they were Litvaks, and it was sweet. They liked sweet. And other than that, her father was religious to the point where when he ate, he wore a kippah. And when he told them bedtime stories, it was from the Chumash, and he read them stories from the Chumash, and he wore his kippah. But on a regular basis, he did not always. They had a sukkah that was built onto their house. My mother's grandfather was in the lumber business, and she said he built half the town because he was so good with his hands, even though he never learned architecture. And he built on the back of the house. It was a room that had a rolling roof. And so for sukkahs, they used to roll back the roof and put their schach on it, whatever it was. So she had a very solid background. Her aunt was a Hebrew teacher. So there was a lot of Judaism going on in their home.
Dinah's father, Fritz, was born in Berlin, Germany. He, too, was an only child.
He lived in a middle-class Jewish neighborhood. The only thing I know is that when he was young, it was probably during the First World War. He was born in 1906. I think it was 1906. And it was a very hard time. And my grandmother used to send him to stand in the bread line because the food was so scarce. And his father was in the Army. I have a picture of him in an Army uniform. I never knew them because they died during the Holocaust in Auschwitz. But, and he didn't talk much about his childhood, just that he did have a friend of the family who bought him a piano, gave him piano lessons, so he learned how to play the piano, but it wasn't his parents. They didn't have the money for that. But he had a wonderful, not a wonderful life in Germany per se, but in the 20s, which was a great time for everywhere. That music, and he loved jazz, he loved American music, he loved going to dance halls, he had friends, he traveled. It was easy to travel, it was cheap. They'd get on a train and went to Switzerland and Italy and France, and it was fun. He had a great time. And to pay for that, because he chose not to go to college, his parents were willing to pay. He wasn't willing to put in the time and the work, and they said, if you don't do the work, we're not gonna pay for it. We can't afford it. So he got odd jobs with one of his friends' father owned a big manufacturing company, clothing manufacturing company, and that was the job he told us about. That he sewed buttons on coats just to make extra money to do all the fun things he wanted to do. So that he enjoyed. School was, they were anti-Semitic then. He was a wonderful student, math student, and he got poor grades because he was Jewish. So he didn't like to talk much about the anti-Semitism, but it was always an undercurrent there.
It took him a few years to find a way to escape Germany, just in time.
For a couple of years, he was trying to get a sponsor because they wanted Jews out, but they didn't want to let them out. And America wouldn't let them in, or any other country. I mean, he had letters written to England, and he had relatives in South Africa. He was writing to his mother's relatives. They were afraid. They didn't know what was going to happen, and they were afraid that they were going to have to support him because you had to tell how much money you had to support this immigrant that was coming. And they said, no, we can't do it. So he never talked to them again. He never looked them up when he came to the States. I know nothing about those relatives. And he finally, after a couple of years, either Hayes, or he got letters from Hayes. I don't know how he got in touch with the woman who was the angel, really, that was probably helping German immigrants. And she paid to sponsor. She had to show how much money. She had a home. She had bank records. I have all the records. She was worth, in those years, in 1938 to 1937, she was worth $250,000. That was a huge amount of money. And she had to prove for 2 years she needed the bank records every day, how much money she had in the bank. And finally, in October of 1939, he escaped with his life, basically. He got a visa, and he went to the park to say goodbye to his girlfriend, who was not Jewish. And he was sitting in the park, and there were no other people around. And all of a sudden, he saw a couple walking towards him, a man and a woman. She had a hat on, and he had a hat. And he thought, this doesn't look good. There's nobody else here. And they were looking at him and his friend. And he said, I think I should get out of here. And he got up and he started walking, and they started following him. And he started running. And I obviously must have seen a taxi, and jumped in and got out of there. And for the rest of his life, pretty much, he used to have nightmares that he was being chased. And I never knew what it was until I got older and he told the story. And I figured that was PTSD from that, because had he been caught, he would have ended up in jail.
To this day, Dinah has documents from Germany and her father's journey to America.
He saved everything. He saved all of the menus from the ship. He left from Genoa. He had to get to Genoa. And he left from Genoa, and the ship was the USS Rex. And he saved all the menus and all the entertainment. And he had pictures that he took. There was a picture of him sitting on a lounge chair. It looked like he was going on vacation. He was so happy to be on that ship. And there's a picture at the end of him seeing the Statue of Liberty. Yes, the picture of the Statue of Liberty. And on the bottom it says, "Hello, America." So he was just thankful to be out.
Fritz's parents weren't able to get out, and they, tragically, were killed in Auschwitz.
He didn't have any money. He came with one suitcase and a Victrola, a little Victrola, which was a box that was like a record player that was closed up like in a little suitcase. And that's all he came with. And he had to work to make money, and there was no time for that. My grandparents were still alive when I was born, because he got a letter congratulating him. I remember, I don't have the letter. He must have thrown it away. But my son, who went to Berlin, found, my father must have put this, when he was in Israel, he must have given the information, that they were in Theresienstadt for 2 years, from 42 to 44, and then they were sent from there to Auschwitz. So he didn't know when they died, but he knew where they died. They knew I was born, and they congratulated him. And I don't know if he ever got any other mail from them, because Theresienstadt was just a show place. It was still a prison.
Upon arriving in the United States, Fritz took it upon himself to learn English.
To learn English, he went to night school. And to make money to live, he worked in the steel mills. And he did that until he had enough information and enough where he could, to earn a living, he started a machine shop. It was a very small machine shop. He started it with another German immigrant who was not Jewish, and it was called B&K Products. He was very good in math, should have been an engineer. He had that brain. And working in the steel mills, I don't know if it did anything for him, but learning, he knew enough from school. He used to complain about our school system. His school system was great, so whatever he learned before. And that's how he made his living forever till he died.
To Chicago, Fritz arrived because of the strong German Jewish community there at the time, which Dinah believes gave him some kind of support system as a young man who had moved there with no family. A hobby Fritz had that played a significant part in his life was stamp collecting.
He had one in Europe. When he was growing up, he collected stamps, but he couldn't bring those with him. So yes, when he came and he started to make a little money, he started to buy stamps, and he was an avid collector. He had really major collections and used to go to the stamp shows and come home with big bags of stamps, and he would take them and take them off of letters, and he'd have the bathtub and the sink full of stamps to separate the stamps from the backing. And then he used to buy stamps from Israel. He always bought stamps from Israel and put them away. They were never very valuable because there were so many. But he did have some from Palestine. So those were his pride and joy. We still have them somewhere. They're not worth a lot because it's not a collection. But that was his dream, that one day he would retire and open a little stamp shop.
Dinah doesn't know exactly how her parents met, but she assumes it was between the years 1939 and 1941. And there's an interesting story involving a fortune teller regarding how they got together.
I am assuming that it was they must have had, socials where people would come and, for the immigrants to connect with Jews in the community. And my mother went to a fortune teller once with a friend who told her who she was going to meet and marry. And this was my father, someone who wore a hat, someone who was very quick, someone who was small and carried a briefcase. So when she met my father and she saw all these things, she figured this must be the person. And she felt so sorry for him, that he had to leave everything. And she was a very understanding, sympathetic person and was attracted to that. And in those years, people didn't just fall in love, and they were both in their 30s, and they were looking for family and for connections.
Fritz and Dorothy were married in a small ceremony in a rabbi's study in 1941.
Her family was around. He had no family.
They moved to the south side of Chicago, where Dinah was born. Her mother, Dinah tells me, giving her background, wanted to have a kosher home, but it was very difficult being her husband did not have a religious background himself.
He had a bar mitzvah. He didn't talk about anything else that was in the big synagogue in Berlin. And he didn't even remember his Hebrew name because he really wasn't a shul goer. And so my mother would have loved to have kept kosher, but my father was mixing up everything, and she tried to explain to him, and it just wouldn't have worked. And it was the wartime, and it was very expensive, and she tried. She never mixed milk and meat, and she didn't do any of the things that she learned not to do. But she started to keep kosher. In fact, when we were keeping kosher, when our kids started day school, and we started to keep a kosher home, she said, I'm going to go back to it. So she could afford to do it then. So she started to keep kosher so the kids could eat in her house and feel comfortable. And she knew what to do, and she loved it. I mean, it wasn't that she didn't want to, she just couldn't afford to.
Dorothy was one of 6, 5 sisters and 1 brother, and they were always very close.
It was a close-knit family. They got along, everybody got along, and we used to get together all the time. And one of my aunts always lived in California, another one moved there, but they stayed very close through the mail because there was no other way to do it then.
Dinah's Aunt Jeanette, who had come to America first with her father and her husband, were the ones who led the family, as Dinah puts it.
They bought a grocery store in a black neighborhood, little grocery store, which a lot of people did in those years because he didn't know anything else. My uncle came from Poland, and he didn't have the training or background to do anything else, but he could sell. And he was really a very wonderful person, and they did very well. And they helped everybody else in the family. Anybody that needed help, they hired them, they helped them, they gave them money, whatever. They were the head of the family. They were the oldest, and they were the ones that had the car. Nobody else had a car because they couldn't afford it. We didn't get one until the 50s. So they were, my father called my aunt the boss because she was strong. She was really strong.
Being so close, Jeanette's son Philip and Dinah were almost like siblings, even having a kind of sibling rivalry.
A 16-year older cousin who was very close to my mother because They lived next door to each other, and my mother loved children, and so she was always close with him. And for 16 years, it was my grandmother, my mother, and my cousin Philip. And when I was born, her attention was taken away from him, and he was very jealous. So it was really like an older brother as opposed to a cousin, because she was very close with that sister. And my aunt wanted a girl, and she only had one child, so she made a big fuss over me. So he was a little rough on me. He was always a little rough on me, but we had a very close relationship always.
At one point, Jeanette even suggested adopting Dinah. Needless to say, Dorothy was stunned.
She said, I have the money and I have the wherewithal, and I think, it's very hard for you. I should take her. She didn't say adopt. I'm saying adopt, but that's what she was hoping, and my mother was appalled because she had no intention of getting rid of this little child that she was waiting for all these years. My aunt was pretty strong. She was. But I used to sleep there. My cousin went to war. He went to fight in Europe, and she had no one, so I used to be with her like I would be with a grandmother. She felt like a grandmother to me because I'd sleep there. She loved to feed me. She loved it. She was doing all the training, and yes. But when I heard my mother's voice on the phone, I wanted to go home. Otherwise, I loved being in her house. It was fun. She taught me how to fold socks and how to make blueberry pies.
There was a nickname Dinah's mother called her that her cousin Philip used to taunt her with for years.
Mumpsy doll, yes, my little doll, my little sweet doll. Yeah, my cousin hated it. He did. And she used to, when she didn't like what was happening, she'd bring me to my aunt's house, and I wasn't behaving or my cousin was being mean to me, and she'd pick up, and this is what he said because I don't remember, that she'd wrap a scarf around me and she'd say, "We're going home, Mumpsy doll." And this is what I heard from him my whole life, like that little dig forever. It didn't bother me. He called me Fritzig. He said, "You're just like your father, Fritzig," like a little Fritz. And stubborn, a little stubborn. So he had nicknames for everybody.
Dinah talks about her relationship with her father. Something she notes about him is how he never made promises.
Maybe because of the way he lived, and he saw that there were no promises in life. So I appreciated that, because he never promised that he was going to take us somewhere or do something or give me something or get me anything. It was always that we would see. We'll see. And I never felt disappointed, and I never felt elated, because he was very middle of the road. We don't make promises because we don't know if we can keep them, and we don't want you to be disappointed. He didn't say it, but that's what he meant by that. He gave me everything that he could give me because he wanted to hear opera, so he bought me a tape recorder, and I got the benefit of it, and I played it, but he recorded all of his operas. He bought me a piano and gave me lessons for 2 years, which didn't work because he wanted to play the piano, but I got the benefit. And I knew that he loved me because he never talked about that, because I don't think he was raised that way. But he let me drive his car. He taught me how to drive when he got a car in the 50s, a big station wagon. I was this little person at 12 years old. I was driving that car because I knew he loved me if he let me drive his car. So he was that kind of, it was interesting. It was interesting.
Another cherished memory she has is going with her parents to plays and to the theater when her father got to the point that he could afford it.
When he was able and he started to save a little money, New Year's Eve, it was usually New Year's Eve, we would take a train. We had a wonderful train that went from our neighborhood downtown. It was called the Illinois Central. It was a regular railroad train, not a subway. And we would go downtown to the theater, and we'd go to see Broadway plays every year, once a year. And that was very special because we saw all the plays because he and my mother both loved music, loved theater, And so I got the benefit of all that wonderful stuff.
Dinah's mother, throughout her childhood, always tried to give her as many opportunities as possible.
My mother thought I was a genius, and so she gave me, it was called elocution. It was really drama, where you get a little book and you had all the words, and she thought I was going to be an actress or a singer. Yes, she gave me, and she saved her money to do that. Whatever allowance my father gave her money, because she stopped working when I was born. I had tap lessons. I was a brownie. She was a chaperone and I was a brownie. She tried to do everything for me that she possibly could to give me every opportunity. I even auditioned for the Ted Mack amateur hour. I learned a song, the anniversary waltz, and I must have been 6 years old. And I went for the audition, and when I saw the microphone, I became paralyzed. I couldn't sing, I couldn't open my mouth, and she was so disappointed, but they didn't say anything. We just walked out of there. So she was trying to give me everything that she never was able to have.
Another cherished memory of her mother is how she sewed all of Dinah's clothes as a child. She tells me how her mother, before she had Dinah, had even worked as a milliner and a seamstress.
She worked in a factory making hats. She was a millinerist, and she always wore hats. And of course, from Europe, hats and gloves were very in. So she was and she wore them beautifully. She was a very tiny person with a very small head, and she wore every kind of hat you could possibly imagine. She sewed all my clothes when I was little. So that was something that she was a seamstress, really excellent. But she had to quit because she had no one to take care of me. And so it was hard those first years for my parents. I didn't know it. I didn't feel it, but it was.
On Sundays, Dinah's extended family would get together for picnics together.
On Sundays, we used to go to Jackson Park, which is on the south side near the Museum of Science and Industry, which was a German Jew who started that. And the park was a gorgeous park, and everybody used to come to Jackson Park. And so on Sunday night, my uncle would call or my aunt would call and say, I'll pick you up and we'll go to the park. And we'd go. So people hung out there all the time. And on Sundays, we used to have family picnics. And so the adults would play baseball. And I would sit and watch everybody. And I was the star anyway. So it was fun. It was a good way to keep the family together.
The family would celebrate holidays together. Dinah has many memories from those times.
We celebrated all those holidays in our own fashion. Pesach was always at my aunt's house, my Aunt Jeanette. My Uncle Bill had a background. They were religious. They were very religious. He threw away all of that when he was on the boat coming. His family just got rid of it. It was overwhelming. But he read the Haggadah from front to back, the whole Haggadah in Hebrew. Nobody understood what he was doing, and everybody wanted just to finish it and eat. And I said then, this isn't going to happen in my house. I'm not going to do it, because I wanted to hear, I wanted to know what they were doing, and nobody else in the family really cared. So it was just a feeling, no reason, but I said, I'm not going to do this. And then we had Purim. My mother made Purim costumes for me. And Pesach, she had her Pesach dishes, one set of china, her good china, and that was for fleischiks. And I don't remember what she did for anything else, but she changed her dishes. And she only bought food that was kosher for Pesach, whatever she could buy. And so there was always that delineation. Simchas Torah, we always went to shul, the apple and the flags, and we used to march around. I don't know what kind of a shul it was. It was a small shul, but always celebrated those holidays for sure.
Dinah's mother also had them celebrate Shabbat every week.
She always made Shabbos. She washed the floor, put newspaper on the floor on Friday, and she made challah, a lot of challah rolls, more than challah, but she made big, beautiful challah rolls. She also made hamantashen, that were yeast, and they were huge, and they were the best. I mean, her baking. But Shabbos, she lit candles, and it was always, we weren't Shomer Shabbos, but she took it seriously. It was a different day.
To try to enhance her Jewish education, Dinah was sent to Hebrew school, but it was difficult and therefore short-lasted.
I went for a year. She wanted me to get some education, and so she sent me, but it was the synagogue was a conservative synagogue far from where we lived, and I didn't like it. And she said, okay, you don't like it, you don't have to go. And then we tried 1 year in Hebrew school, so I learned very basic first year Hebrew school, and it was the same story, and it was after school, and she felt sorry for me because I said, I don't want to go, don't like it. So she said, okay. And I said, as I got older, then I didn't think about it, but I said when I started having kids, that's not going to happen to my kids. I'm going to tell them what they're going to do, and I want them to have that education, and they will have it, because she never should have let me make the decision. She was being nice, and I thought, you can't always just be nice. You have to be serious about what you're doing.
She was also taken as a young child to Bnei Akiva and had her first introduction to Israel through that.
I think it was Bnei Akiva, because when I was little, my mother took me to a shul. It was a little shul, and upstairs in the shul, there was what you would say, it was a wooden floor, and a couch and a chair, whatever. And there were counselors, a few counselors, and I was young because that was probably in 47 or 48 or maybe even 49, right around statehood. And we did Israeli dancing and singing Israeli songs, and I loved it. It was fun, and I remember those. And then one day, one of the counselors came to our house, and she said, I'm leaving for Israel. And that was the end of the group, but she had her blue shirt on with the white ties, and like the chalutzim were wearing. And she was so excited. Her name was Shoshana. And I remember she was blonde, and she was cute, and because she was one of the counselors. And I guess they either all left, but I didn't go after that. I think it must have been a Bnei Akiva group.
Her elementary school was small and wonderful, Dinah says.
The school was a small school, Kenwood. It was called Kenwood School. My class was 22 kids. I started in the middle of the year because in those years they were doing winter. If your birthday was in the winter, you started in the winter. I was the secretary of the class, and that's how I remember that there were 22 kids. And I had to name, which kids and what there were. It was an eclectic group, very eclectic. It was a really good school. I loved it. I loved every school I went to. I loved being social and making friends, and it was a very mixed neighborhood, and so I had all kinds of friends. And those were good years. I was on the newspaper, school newspaper. We learned all kinds of songs and all kinds of, from all over the world. Those are the things that I remember. And we did have Christmas trees in school at that time. That was a big thing. Christmas was very big, and nobody complained about it, and didn't change my life at all. And it was fun. It was pretty and colorful.
Dinah's teachers, from the beginning, always said she talked too much in class.
In first grade, my teacher, Mrs. Levinson, you remember those names, put me in the corner for talking once. I had a dunce cap, and it was a timeout. It was really a timeout, what you do with your kids now when they get put in the corner, and I had to face the corner, and she called my mother, and my mother had to come to school and listen to her say how I was so noisy, and I talked all the time. And so every report card, which I've saved, says, talks too much, talks too much, talks too much.
For high school, Dinah's family decided to move.
We moved from Hyde Park to South Shore because the high school in Hyde Park had become very, very dangerous. It was dangerous. The people that moved into the neighborhood, it was very different from years before. It was a very good school, And it became a place where my parents didn't want me to go to that school. So we moved further south to South Shore so I could go to South Shore High School. And that was the first time when I walked in and I saw that most of the kids were Jewish. It was strange to me because I had such a mixed class and a mixed life in Hyde Park. Because of the university, there were a lot of foreign people, and it was just a mixture. And South Shore was very, at that time where we lived, it was all white, and it was in our neighborhood. It was really like an enclave, because around us there were a lot of negativity, a lot of anti-Jewish sentiment. But that little area that we lived in was a very Jewish area.
Dinah loved high school, just like she loved elementary school. She was always social and active, in school and through other after-school social activities.
I was very active in anything that was going around. I was a hall guard. I loved to be a hall guard. They used to put people outside, in their desk, outside. If anybody was going to the bathroom or leaving class, you had to check with the hall guard. So I got to talk to everybody that went by. It was a great job for me. And I loved high school. I made very, very good close friends that I have today. That was the best part of school. The activities, the BBG, I belonged to the B'nai B'rith girls, and we did a lot of fundraising with the boys, AZA boys, and they always sent the boys with us when we went to collect in outside our neighborhood, because there was a Polish neighborhood that was very close called South Chicago. It was only a few blocks out of our district, but there were a lot of anti-Semitism there. So when we went to collect, we would collect cans and give them for charity, to groups that were collecting food, and the boys had to go with us. We had car washes, just ways to raise money for the Jewish community, and all the activities. And then it culminated in an invitational at the end of the year. It was a dance. That was the big thing. But we also had sports, and it was all competition. It was competitive. So the different BBGs and different AZAs would get, they would work on their individual programs, and everyone had a Devar Torah. You had to have something of Jewish content in every group. And then they would be voted on. We wrote songs, we did Devar Torahs, we did sports, and then we had a big dance. So that was, like the highlight of every year.
In high school, Dinah also joined the chorus, where she had interesting experiences.
Loved the chorus, and it was a mixed chorus, and we put on plays every year, but we also caroled, Christmas carols. And the makeup of the chorus was 95% Jewish. And all of the Jewish kids were singing all the Christmas carols. And some of them wouldn't say the words, but I didn't care. It didn't bother me. It wasn't meaningful to me. And on Christmas, I don't think it was, maybe it was even Christmas Eve, we went to the bank on our main street and in our robes, and it was so cool. It was really, everybody loved it, and we used to sing carols, and they piped them out into the neighborhood, so you could hear those carols coming from everywhere. And I got a school letter for that, just like they gave letters to the sports. They gave letters for chorus.
During high school, Dinah also worked part-time.
I worked part-time. I worked in Marshall Fields, which was the huge department store. My friend and I used to go. It was downtown in Chicago, so it was like 20 minutes, a half hour from our house, take the train, and I worked in the dress department. And I did the schlepping because the women that worked in that department were on commission, and they didn't want this little person to do any sales. But I worked there, and it was hard work. And I did that for a while, and then I worked in another clothing store that was closer to the neighborhood. And I did that because I wanted to make extra money. That was after I was 16, because then you could go to work. Because my father, even though I was an only child, he didn't spoil me. if I wanted extra things, he gave me an allowance, $5 a week or whatever it was. But if I wanted extra things, and I said, I'm going to buy my own things, and that's why I decided then I have to have a job. So it was good. It was good training. It was good lessons to learn.
Dinah finished high school and decided to go to college to study education. Why education, I ask?
I always wanted to be a teacher. When I was little, I used to play with my friends, and I always had to be the teacher. So I like to be in charge. I like to be the head. If I go to a meeting, I like to sit in front. I like to be where the action is. I was never, and I never wanted to be in the back. And so I loved books. I lived in the library. We had a library in our second apartment. The library was right across the street next to the school. That was the public library. And I still know the name of my librarian. It was Mrs. Hicks, because I read every book in the library. Being an only child, I read a lot. And my mother taught me to read when I was 2 years old. She said I read because I memorized all the books. And so I've always been a reader. And I liked education. I mean, I liked learning new things, and I wanted to be the one that was teaching them. I went to Illinois, University of Illinois, downstate in Champaign-Urbana. I went for 1 year. It was shocking because I came from a small elementary school, small high school, and there were 120 kids in our graduating class in high school. So that was small because it was January. The biggest class was 200. And then I came downstate, and it was huge. There were 30,000 students. And I did go with friends, though. A lot of my friends didn't go away because it was cheap. It was really cheap. The most expensive thing was the dorm. The tuition was very cheap if you were an in-state resident.
I learned a lot there, says Dinah, academically and many life lessons.
I learned a lot of lessons there about getting along with people, because for an only child, I have to share a room with somebody as a roommate, somebody who had been a model when she was in lower grades and came with suitcases filled with cashmere sweaters, and I had a few things. It was hard. But I learned lessons of how to adjust to situations that I stayed out of that room pretty much, and I went to my other friends, and that was one semester. And then the second semester, my good friend, came for 1 semester. And after that, I came home because my boyfriend at the time was at home, and it was hard for us to see each other. I had to take a train home, and you couldn't call. You had once a week. I called my parents. I had to save change because we didn't have phones in our rooms, and I got to call my parents. So I certainly wasn't calling my boyfriend with my change that I saved up, and it was hard. I loved the experience of being there.
But even so, she felt it wasn't right. So she decided to leave and finish college closer to home.
I came home and I finished at Roosevelt University, which was a city school. It was a little more expensive, but I lived at home. So it wasn't the dorm that was expensive, but it was a wonderful school. It was self-contained, and it was facing Grant Park and the lake. And it was beautiful, and we had a big lounge right overlooking the park, and it was a very wonderful mix of people, a lot of Jews, a lot of people that I knew later as friends went to that school. I didn't know them, but it was a very close-knit because everybody was there all day. You hung out because you weren't going to go back home. And I met a lot of interesting people, a lot of blacks and a lot of Jews, and there were Indians and there were Asians, a lot of people coming from foreign countries, very mixed. And I was an education major, so I sort of stuck with those classes. And I hung out in a lounge a lot because that was the time of folk music, and people used to come with a guitar, and we'd sit and we'd do all the things that you could do when you're living in that kind of an atmosphere daily, and you get to know people really well. So it was a wonderful time. It really was. We were next to 2 doors away from Symphony Hall, to 2 blocks away from the Art Institute. I took an art class. I went to the Art Institute. I took a music class. I went to the symphony. So it was a really good place to be.
During college, Dinah starts teaching.
We wanted to teach where we did our student teaching, which was in the city on the south side. And it was a black school. And I loved the teacher. The master teacher was wonderful. And she taught me that you need to talk to the children, not like you're in college, but like you're talking to these little kids. Because I came with my idealism and my words that they didn't understand. So I learned a lot from her. And I loved the school. And I came with 2 friends. They were also student teaching there. And we wanted to stay there. But the principal said, I don't know if there's going to be a job, and you didn't take the test yet. So we went out to the southern suburbs, and we looked at the schools, and they had money for anything you wanted. And they said, just tell us, you can, allocate, we'll give you anything you want. And we said, you know what? Let's just take the jobs here. We were offered jobs, so 3 of us could drive together. And so I taught in the southern suburb. And my first year of teaching, I was really dumb and naive. And when Christmas time came and they were talking about Christmas, I thought, I'm going to tell them about Hanukkah. And I did. And the first thing one kid said to me after I spoke to the class, he said, are you Jewish? And I said, yes. And he said, but the Jews killed Jesus. That was the last time I ever talked about Hanukkah in my classes. So you learn lessons as you're doing things, you learn, but I loved it.
Dinah worked as a teacher for 3 years and decided to stop once she started having children and wanted to stay home and bring them up. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. During college, Dinah met her future husband, Alan. More about that in the next episodes.